Listen carefully, because success is not about what you add to your life, it's about what you remove. Too much weight slows the ship. Cut the anchors. First, delete excuses. Excuses are heavy. They make you slow. Delete them before they delete your dreams. Excuses are the invisible chains that keep people tied to the same place year after year. They feel light at first, like they carry no weight, but over time, they become so heavy that you can barely move forward. When people say they want success, but keep repeating why they can't do something, what they're really saying is that they are not ready to take full ownership of their lives. Excuses are comfortable because they shift the blame away from us. It's always the circumstances, the timing, the lack of resources, or the people around us. It's never us. But here's the truth: as long as excuses exist in your life, real growth will always stay out of reach. Think about how many times opportunities pass by because excuses whisper convincing stories in your head. You tell yourself it's not the right time to start the business. You need more savings, more experience, more confidence. You say you will begin tomorrow, next week, next year, when things are better. But life never stops being messy. There will always be obstacles, responsibilities, and uncertainties. People who succeed are not the ones with perfect conditions. They are the ones who refuse to let excuses decide their future. Excuses also kill potential quietly. You don't even realize how much power you lose when you give them room to grow. Every time you say, "I can't," your mind believes you. It begins to protect you from challenges because it thinks you are not capable. Over time, you stop trying new things, taking risks, or dreaming big because you've convinced yourself the world is too hard, too unfair, too complicated. But the truth is, most limits are self-imposed. Some excuses come disguised as logic. I don't have enough money to start. I'm too old. I don't have the right connections. They sound reasonable, but behind every one of them is someone who started with nothing, someone who was older than you, someone who knew nobody and still built everything. Excuses create walls, but those walls exist only in your mind. Once you stop believing them, they fall apart. Excuses also love to hide behind perfectionism. You keep waiting for the perfect idea, the perfect timing, the perfect plan. You rewrite, rethink, restart 100 times, but never launch anything. Perfectionism is just fear dressed up nicely. You are not protecting the quality of your work. You are protecting yourself from criticism, failure, and discomfort. Successful people move even when things aren't perfect. They know the first version will be messy, but they also know they can't improve what doesn't exist. Another form of excuse is comparison. You look at people who are ahead and think, they have advantages I don't have. You tell yourself they had luck, talent, or support that you lack. But comparison blinds you to the fact that they also had struggles you don't see. Everyone begins somewhere, and most success stories start in ordinary places with ordinary people who simply refuse to stop. Excuses are easy because they cost nothing today, but they cost everything tomorrow. They steal time, confidence, and possibilities. The longer you keep them, the heavier they become. At some point, you realize years have passed, dreams have faded, and you are standing exactly where you started, holding a bag full of reasons why you never moved. Toxic people are like slow poison. They don't always appear dangerous at first. Sometimes they come as friends, family members, colleagues, or even partners. But their presence slowly drains your energy, your confidence, and your focus until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. They feed on your time and emotions, leaving you with nothing but self-doubt and exhaustion. They might not even realize what they're doing, but the effect they have on your growth is undeniable. Success requires energy, clarity, and a strong mind, and toxic people take all three away from you. Some toxic people are easy to spot. They constantly criticize, complain, and find problems in everything you do. They rarely celebrate your wins, and if they do, it often feels fake or forced. Deep down, they don't want you to rise because your growth makes them uncomfortable. It reminds them of what they are not doing with their own lives. So they throw little comments disguised as jokes, they question your ideas, and they fill your mind with doubt. The more time you spend with them, the heavier you feel because negativity is contagious. If you keep listening to it, eventually you start believing it. Then there are the subtle toxic people. They might seem supportive on the surface, but somehow, after every conversation, you feel smaller, weaker, or less motivated than before. They might play the victim, constantly dragging you into their problems, expecting you to fix everything, while doing nothing to change their own situation. They drain you emotionally because you are always giving, and they are always taking. Your dreams get pushed aside because you are too busy dealing with their chaos. Toxic people can also show up as manipulators. They know how to make you feel guilty for wanting more out of life. They might say things like, "You've changed," or "You're too ambitious," as if growing and improving is something to be ashamed of. They want to keep you at their level, because if you rise too high, they can no longer control you. So they use guilt, fear, or shame to hold you back. The hardest part is when toxic people are close to you. Family, long-time friends, or even partners. You feel obligated to keep them around because of history, loyalty, or love. But keeping people in your life just because of the past is dangerous when they are destroying your future. Sometimes you have to love people from a distance. You can care about them without letting them control your time, your energy, or your mind. Removing toxic people doesn't always mean big fights or dramatic exits. Sometimes it just means slowly creating space, spending less time with them, sharing less about your goals and dreams, surrounding yourself with people who lift you higher instead of pulling you down. Because the more time you spend around negativity, the more it becomes your normal. Success requires focus, and focus requires peace of mind. If you are constantly dealing with drama, criticism, and negativity, you have no energy left to build the life you want. The people around you shape your mindset more than you realize. If they are full of fear, you will absorb fear. If they are lazy, you will lose motivation. If they are bitter, you will stop believing in possibilities. That is why protecting your circle is not selfish, it is survival. Fear of failure is one of the biggest reasons people never start anything meaningful in life. It keeps so many dreams locked inside people's minds, never given the chance to breathe. The idea of failing before even beginning paralyzes them. They imagine everything that could go wrong, every mistake they might make, every person who might laugh at them, and so they stay frozen. The irony is that by trying so hard to avoid failure, they end up failing by default because they never even try. Success has no chance to find someone who refuses to take the first step. Fear of failure often comes from the way society treats mistakes. From a young age, people are taught that failure is embarrassing, that it means you are not good enough, that it defines your worth. Schools give red marks for wrong answers, workplaces punish errors, families sometimes judge harshly when things go wrong. Over time, this creates people who avoid risks because they associate failure with shame rather than learning. But the truth is, every successful person you admire has failed more times than most people have even tried. They are not successful because they avoided failure. They are successful because they learned how to use it. Failure is feedback. It tells you what doesn't work so you can find what does. It gives you experience you cannot read in books or hear in lectures. It builds resilience because you learn how to get up after falling. Without failure, there is no real growth, only the illusion of progress. People who fear failure stay inside their comfort zones because it feels safe there. But nothing extraordinary grows in safe places. The comfort zone might protect you from failure, but it also protects you from success. Another reason people fear failure is because they care too much about the opinions of others. They imagine friends, family, or strangers watching and judging if things don't work out. They picture people whispering behind their backs, saying, "I knew they wouldn't make it." This fear of looking foolish stops them before they even start. But the reality is, most people are too busy with their own lives to think about you for more than a moment. And even if they do judge, their opinions do not pay your bills, build your dreams, or live your life. The fear of failure also hides behind perfectionism. People keep planning, preparing, and researching because they want everything to be perfect before they launch. They tell themselves they are just being careful, but in reality, they are afraid to see their imperfect attempt out in the world. Perfectionism is just fear wearing a mask of productivity. It feels like you are working hard, but you are actually delaying action. The truth is, failure hurts, but it does not destroy you unless you let it. Every failure carries a lesson that success alone cannot teach. It forces you to grow skills, mindset, and courage that comfort and ease will never give you. The first time you fail, it feels heavy, but as you keep moving, you realize it loses power over you. You stop seeing it as an enemy and start seeing it as part of the process. People who achieve great things are not fearless, they just refuse to let fear make their decisions. Overthinking is the silent killer of dreams. It feels like you are being productive because your mind is always busy, turning ideas around, analyzing every possible detail, imagining every scenario. But in reality, overthinking keeps you stuck in the same place while the world moves on without you. It convinces you that you are preparing, when all you are really doing is delaying. You keep waiting for the perfect clarity that never comes, the perfect plan that doesn't exist, the perfect moment that will never arrive. Meanwhile, time slips away quietly while you are still inside your head, circling the same doubts over and over again. Overthinking usually comes from the fear of making mistakes. You want to control every outcome before taking the first step because you don't want anything to go wrong. But life never gives you full control. No matter how much you plan, there will always be things you cannot predict. People who achieve great things are not the ones who had all the answers at the beginning. They are the ones who took action and figured things out along the way. They knew they would make mistakes, but they also knew mistakes can be corrected, while hesitation cannot. Another problem with overthinking is that it magnifies problems until they look bigger than they really are. A small risk becomes a life-changing disaster in your mind. A simple decision turns into a complicated puzzle. You spend hours, days, sometimes even months analyzing what could go wrong, and by the time you are done, the opportunity has already passed. Overthinking kills momentum because it replaces movement with mental noise. It also steals your peace. You cannot focus on the present because your mind is too busy running simulations of the future or replays of the past. You keep imagining conversations that never happened, outcomes that never came true, failures that never even existed outside your head. This constant mental spinning leaves you exhausted before you even start doing anything in the real world. Overthinking often disguises itself as intelligence. People who overthink believe they are just being careful or analytical. They think planning everything perfectly makes them wise. But wisdom comes from experience, not endless thought loops. No amount of thinking can teach you what action will. The moment you move, you learn more in a day than you could in weeks of sitting and analyzing. Another hidden cost of overthinking is missed chances. Life does not wait for you to feel ready. The doors you keep staring at will close eventually. Someone else with less preparation, but more courage will walk through them, while you are still debating with yourself. Success often goes to those who act quickly, not recklessly, but decisively. They understand that imperfect action beats perfect hesitation every single time. Overthinking can also destroy confidence. The longer you think about something, the more flaws you see in yourself, in your ideas, in your abilities. Your mind starts creating reasons why you shouldn't do it, why you might fail, why you are not ready. And slowly, you start believing those reasons. The more time you give your doubts to speak, the louder they become, until they silence every bit of courage you had. People stuck in overthinking often wait for motivation to magically appear before they start. But motivation comes after action, not before it. The moment you take the first small step, even if it's messy, you break the mental loop and create movement. Movement creates clarity. Action creates answers. Thinking alone never does. Negative self-talk is one of the most powerful forms of self-sabotage because it comes from within. You can escape toxic people, ignore critics, and shut out negativity from the world. But when the voice in your own head turns against you, there is no place to hide. It whispers in moments of doubt, shouts when you make mistakes, and slowly convinces you that you are not capable, not ready, not enough. Over time, this inner dialogue becomes a habit so familiar that you do not even realize how much power it has over your life. It shapes the way you see yourself, the risks you take, and the opportunities you allow yourself to chase. Negative self-talk usually begins quietly. One bad experience, one failure, or one harsh comment from someone you respect can plant a seed in your mind. Suddenly, you start questioning everything about yourself. You miss one deadline and think, I'm always late. You fail one exam and say, I'm not smart enough. You get rejected once and conclude, I'll never be good enough. That single moment grows into a pattern of thinking, where you label yourself by your mistakes instead of seeing them as temporary events. The more you repeat those labels in your head, the more you start believing they are true. The problem is that your mind listens to everything you say, even when it is a lie. If you keep telling yourself you are not good enough, your brain starts filtering the world to prove you right. You notice every flaw, every setback, every moment of weakness, and ignore all the progress you make. Slowly, you stop trying because you have already convinced yourself it will not work. The words you repeat to yourself become the reality you live in. Negative self-talk also grows stronger when you compare yourself to others. You look at people who seem more successful, more talented, more confident, and you start telling yourself that you will never be like them. You don't see their struggles or failures, you only see their highlight reel. But instead of using their success as inspiration, you use it as evidence that you are not enough. This constant comparison keeps feeding that inner critic, making it louder and more convincing with every thought. Another reason negative self-talk is so destructive because it stops you before you even start. You have ideas, dreams, and plans, but before you take the first step, the voice inside says, you can't do it. So you hesitate, you delay, you wait for the day when you will finally feel confident enough, ready enough, strong enough. That day never comes because confidence does not appear out of nowhere. It grows from action, from doing things even when you feel scared or unsure. The most dangerous thing about negative self-talk is how normal it begins to feel. After a while, you stop noticing it because it has been there for so long. It becomes the background noise of your life, shaping your choices without you even realizing it. You avoid opportunities because you have convinced yourself you are not capable. You settle for less because you believe you do not deserve more. You quit too soon because you keep repeating that you are not strong enough to keep going. What most people never realize is that the voice in their head is not always telling the truth. It is just echoing old fears, past failures, and other people's opinions. It speaks from memory, not possibility. The moment you start questioning it instead of obeying it, everything begins to change because your mind can be trained to speak differently, to encourage instead of discourage, to push you forward instead of holding you back. Comfort zones feel safe because they give the illusion of control. You know what to expect, you know the routines, and nothing challenges you too much. It feels peaceful on the surface, but underneath, it is slowly killing your potential. Growth never happens in places of comfort. Comfort zones are like invisible cages. You can see the world outside, but you stay where you are because it feels familiar. The bars are made of habits, fears, and excuses that convince you it is better to stay where things are easy rather than risk stepping into the unknown. The human mind naturally seeks safety. It wants to avoid pain, failure, and embarrassment. That is why it constantly tells you to stay where things feel predictable. It tells you to wait until you feel ready, until you have more resources, until the timing is right. But the truth is, you will never feel ready, because growth always feels uncomfortable in the beginning. The first workout feels exhausting. The first business idea feels overwhelming. The first speech feels terrifying. Everything worth doing feels scary at first, because you are stepping into territory where you have no experience yet. Comfort zones also create the illusion of progress. You can stay busy inside them, doing the same safe tasks every day, convincing yourself you are working hard. But being busy is not the same as moving forward. If what you are doing does not scare you even a little, if it does not stretch you or teach you something new, then you are only walking in circles. Real growth requires risk. It demands that you try things you might fail at. Speak up when your voice shakes, take chances that could embarrass you, and keep moving even when you feel unprepared. The danger of staying in your comfort zone for too long is that it becomes smaller over time. The longer you stay safe, the scarier the outside world feels. Things that should be exciting start feeling impossible, because you have trained your brain to avoid discomfort at all costs. Soon, even small challenges feel overwhelming, because you have not built the muscle to handle them. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it slowly makes you weaker without you noticing. Stepping out of your comfort zone is not about taking wild, reckless risks. It is about small, consistent steps into unfamiliar territory. Every time you do something that scares you a little, you expand what feels normal. The first time you speak in front of a group, your heart races, your hands shake, but the second time feels easier. The third time feels natural. What was once terrifying becomes part of your new comfort zone, because you stretched it with action. Another reason people stay inside their comfort zones is because they fear judgment. They do not want to look foolish, make mistakes publicly, or face criticism. But judgment exists whether you play small or dream big. People will always have opinions. The difference is that when you stay comfortable, their opinions don't matter because you are not doing anything worth talking about. When you step out and take risks, yes, some people will criticize, but others will admire, support, and be inspired by your courage. The truth is, everything you want, success, confidence, skills, opportunities, lives outside the place where you feel safe. The people you admire today once stood exactly where you are, afraid to take the first step. They didn't feel ready either, but they moved anyway. They knew the discomfort of growth was far better than the regret of staying the same. Success isn't built by adding more things to your life. It's built by removing the things that hold you back. Excuses, toxic people, fear of failure, overthinking, negative self-talk, and the comfort zones you hide in. These are the real weights slowing you down. The moment you start letting them go, you create space for courage, action, and growth to take their place. Success doesn't come to the one carrying the heaviest load. It comes to the one who learns to travel light, focused, and free from what no longer serves them.